It is Monday, August 25th, and game week is finally upon us, Notre Dame fans. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated and John Bryce of Football Scoop, and this is Irish Illustrated Insider. Before we get to a final update on the Irish depth chart, one that will be officially released, we think, tomorrow, right before Marcus Freeman's noon press conference, and before we delve deeply into the season opener at Miami, hey, Priester, have you started working on Miami yet? I'm going to find that real fast, I
Yeah,
guess.
in April.
Yeah. I ask you, Tim, your thoughts on week zero with it in the rear view now. Was there a highlight for you in Dublin?
I don't know about highlights. I thought that was a fairly well, it was a competitive game. I don't know how entertaining it was. I was impressed by Hawaii. I realized it was Stanford. Stanford's got trouble. But I thought, the Hawaii quarterback, he was hugely advertised going into the game. And after a strip sack and touchdown in the end zone to open the game up, he did some really good things. So I wasn't glued to it. Kind of treated it like the last off weekend that it actually was. And yeah, nice win for Iowa State. That was really that's a heck of a matchup. Those are two teams in the Big 12 that you don't necessarily expect to be there every year, and yet they are. So I thought that was a pretty entertaining, competitive game.
JB, you taking Ian?
Yeah, I did. Certainly was glued to the Kansas State Iowa State game with Major FOMO there. That was a great trip we all took to
Yeah.
Ireland
Yeah.
2 years ago. So I was reminiscing about that and the Brazen Head pub. It's the oldest pub in Ireland and all of that. Kansas State's behind the eight ball, and the Big 12 is pretty wide open this year, and Kansas State got assigned to play that game by the Big 12 office, and now they really maybe have one game margin for error the entire rest of the way, and that's just a tough way to have to operate your football season. But somebody was going to lose,
Yep.
and then just the further decay of Stanford football stands out to me. Really, really happy for the Hawaii program. Timmy Chang trying to get things righted there in a program that does not have much in the way of a budget, and obviously faces a ton of other constraints. But the kicker already providing us with one of our great stories for all of this entire college football season. Kansai Matsuzawa hitting the game-winning field goal. He's a native of Chiba, Japan. He was vacationing, as the story goes, in America with his family and saw an NFL game on TV, went home to Japan, started teaching himself how to kick a football off of YouTube videos, began his career in Nelsonville, Ohio at a junior college. Nelsonville, Ohio, I didn't know till I started researching the Hawaii kicker, is the hometown of Sarah Jessica Parker. And now it's also known as the hometown of Kensai Matsuzawa, who drilled the game winning field goal. And Timmy Chang, here's how poor Hawaii is. Timmy Chang gets a $7,500 bonus for beating a power conference team at home. So good for him. But when your bonus structure at a FBS school starts with a $7,500 bonus, you got some work to do.
I got two things to add to that. Shockingly, I have things to add to that. Number one is the name reminds me of when Priester absolutely nailed Conrad Ukropina post game 2015 Stanford. Unfortunately, Ukropina also nailed a field goal to knock Notre Dame out of what was that? Out of playoff contention? Yeah, I guess that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like to go in fresh, so I didn't see much of it. My weekend was replete with ping pong, 129 things to say, a boat ride, some tax minutia. I'm a purist. I like to go see Notre Dame play football, and I'm not going to concern myself with other things. But on to Notre Dame, guys. I wanted to quickly go over the depth chart for people that have missed every single one of our podcasts in July and August. This would be the one for you. Priester, I made a quick list there where I wrote down things we think we know, but things could change, and then some positions where they are pretty obviously set. And I think you guys will agree. Whether there's semantics or not at left and right end, we know the defensive ends are going to play, the four defensive ends. The linebacker quartet is all set. It's also irrelevant because they're going to rotate better than anybody else. Cornerback is obviously set. Running back, wide receiver, tight end, and now quarterback seem pretty clear. Then comes the questions. Interior defensive line. We think we know Onye and Heinisch, backed by Rubio and Dawson, but would anybody be surprised if any part of the latter pairing plays more than part of the former pairing?
I wouldn't be surprised by that. I think we're all kind of, I think it's pretty exciting to see Jason Onye in action and see if he can put it all together. I mean, physically when he's out there, and that's the thing, I mean, I've been told about NFL JB. I think you may have said this too, that there's NFL interest in Jason Onye, and he hasn't done anything. But when you see him, and that's another interesting thing. And John, you brought this up. NFL scouts used to wait until after the season to check teams out. That's not happening now. That's happening during preseason camp. So they're seeing people like Jason Onye and what he can do, and he looks great. He looks fantastic. He's always looked fantastic though, and so now he needs to put it to use. But would I be surprised if Gabe Rubio got more snaps than him, or if Dawson got a few more snaps than Heinisch? No, absolutely not. I think it's a four-team grouping in there. We'll see how much Elijah Hughes plays, but that in particular, I could talk about some others, but let's bounce it around here. I would not be surprised at that one.
Yeah, I would not at all be surprised by that. It is early in the season. It is going to be hot. I know we're not going to obsess over the weather all week long, but I went ahead and just cast a glance at it to see there's a chance of some showers that day. That means a lot of steam and humidity. I think that makes being able to rotate up there incredibly important, especially early. So I think we'll see a pretty liberal rotation as much as they feel like they trust the guys going in, and then those guys continue to earn their trust as the game unfolds.
Tim, you don't think they're going to stick to the left and right? I mean, because and that makes sense that you're asking them to play, field and boundary. So why can't you pop to left or right?
Yeah, Tim, I think that makes sense to stick to left or right, especially when you're in a humid environment. If Miami wants to go fast at all, it's easier to play left and right. And I think the real key is basically Chris Ash just said we have the athletes to go left and right now. And they felt like for the first time, and Al Washington brought that up too, for the first time, he feels all four, and when Batello's back, all five ends could be on the boundary because that is probably the harder thing. You don't want to get caught with a guy that can't drop into pass
Mhm.
coverage, and Notre Dame could do that now.
Yeah, for the record, the last time we were in practice, the left ends were Traore, Tuialamaka, and Thomas, and the right ends were Young and Burnham. Where I presume that Botello was slide into there. By the way, I'm hearing some really positive things about Botello returning to action. Aren't you, John? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I am.
I like maybe Texas A&M. Maybe I shouldn't even throw that out there, but
I'm
certainly in September.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear Marcus Freeman. I'm sure some combination, one of us will ask him about Jordan Botello at this week's press conference. But yes, I'm hearing very strongly encouraging things there that he's ramped up his work the last few weeks, and he's closer earlier than anticipated for sure. And then to your point on the ends and who we expect to open, I know in the Jersey scrimmage that the two that opened were Junior and Bryce Young, and so that's sort of again there was a lot that seemed on display at that Jersey scrimmage. A lot of questions that were being finally answered, and it seems like that's kind of where things are headed at the edge. Of course, we'll find out a bit more on Tuesday when Notre Dame formally releases its depth chart. But that was kind of the move being made there on defense.
I think the only thing left, we've talked about it a lot last week, was all the intel points to Gerby Lambert winning that right guard role. So Absher is actually, as Priester has pointed out a couple times, not the technical backup, the in real world backup at all five positions. So someone else will go in, because someone always has to be ready if there's an ankle turn, but Sullivan Absher would be the longer term fix for any of those positions. Safety, Priester, you mentioned, I think we're both on the same page here. Jalen Stroman seems like he had cemented that spot, but Luke Talich and Tay Johnson will play. JB, anything new on kicker? Because you and I really we didn't grill Marty Biaggi. He offered some stuff, but we both went back and forth, tried to name every kicker. When he didn't jump on me saying Noah Burnett, I kind of looked over at you like, ask about the other guys, and
Yeah.
I think it was revealing.
Yeah, I think it was pretty revealing, and I think that that's an issue that there's still some concern with. I don't think the consistency has remotely been where Notre Dame has wanted to see it. Again, I'll point to the fact that Biaggi told us that Friday the 15th. We ended practice today with a game-winning field goal that he made. That was good to see, which lets you know he's not always been making those. And then I think there was a miss from inside 40 yards in the Jersey scrimmage, maybe some more inconsistencies this past weekend, or not this weekend, they were off on the weekend, but towards the end of last week as they wrapped up that set of practice before move in and all the obligations they had elsewhere on campus. But there's some concern there. There's some definite concern at place kicker from a consistency standpoint.
TJP, you've been on this one for a while, but it is officially time. We kept pushing back Miami questions because training camp questions mattered. We had 2 weeks for Miami. Now we have 1 week for Miami, and we have quite a bit, and actually in segment two, covering the matchups in this game. But I'd like to throw it over to you. Some players for key players for Notre Dame fans to watch. Maybe a few on both sides of the ball. We can chime in.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to see what Miami's defensive line looks like. They feel, I mean, it's kind of similar to Notre Dame in that they like their defensive ends, Ruben Bain, Akeem Messidor, and they have some questions about tackle. I think Notre Dame's a little bit deeper at tackle, but David Blake came from Louisiana Tech, where he put up, big numbers, double-digit tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Of course, Justin Scott, who was a Notre Dame recruit,
Yeah.
and they have I can't think of his name, but they have another highly touted backup at defensive tackle, but yet there are concerns coming out of the Miami camp about that. So I want to see how good this Miami defensive line is. I think the Notre Dame offensive line should be ready for it. I think the tackles should be ready for it. Um, and then I mean, a young guy that I didn't originally put in my first rate. I put out a thing today, first rate, second look, just
Second
kind
look,
of,
yeah.
yeah, going through, what we've heard about Miami, and they have a freshman slot receiver, so they're letting it. Malachi Fields won't be the only Malachi out there. Malachi Tony is a slot receiver, and has had a good preseason. Interested to see James Brockermeyer, the center that transferred from TCU. Some of our readers are saying he may be vulnerable as a run blocker. I want to see exactly. I've seen film on him, of course, but I want to see what he does against Notre Dame's interior defensive line.
You took the words out of my mouth on Brockmeyer there, TP. Great point by you. And it should be noted, he's a former national recruit who began his career at Alabama and then transferred to TCU and is now at Miami. And so he just hasn't had the type of career that his brother had or his dad had or that was expected of him when he began his career. It was a pitched battle when Alabama got him on the recruiting trail and beat out Texas at the time to sign him. And so he's struggled to stay healthy. And I think in talking to some people over the weekend, like he's a very nice player, but he's not proved to be an elite player. JoJo Trader is another skill position guy, a former really highly regarded recruit athlete who has battled a little bit of an ankle
Been a little banged up,
injury.
yeah.
Yeah. And so speaking with people in Miami, they seem to think he'll play this week, but also again, you wonder about turf conditions if it does rain this weekend, even though part of the field is covered and all of that. And then you just wonder how he'll feel cutting on it if it's been a high ankle sprain that's nagged him over the past 2 to 3 weeks of Miami Hurricanes
And
camp. So
yeah,
and then they have the kicker. So as we just talked about Notre Dame, and I should note, I expect Notre Dame to travel Eric Schmidt on this game as part of their travel roster. And again, we even heard Marty Biaggi say that day potentially it could be a short field goal guy and a deep field goal guy. So we'll see if that plays out. But Miami has Bert Auburn, the transfer from Texas, another transfer from Texas who was really, really good his first 2 years at Texas and not as consistent last year. I think maybe 16 for 25 last year, something along those lines, after being like 51 of 61 his first 2 years. But he's got 24 career makes of 40 plus yards. So he's got the leg and he's got big time experience. So I think going in right now, I would have the edge on Miami's place kicking.
You know,
well,
I'm
they also have John. I'm not sure that they're convinced that Auburn is going to win the job. They have Carter Davis, who's a transfer from Florida Atlantic. I know Eric Schmidt is a freshman, but so in that sense, it's kind of similar to what Notre Dame's situation is. I would imagine Auburn wins the job.
Yeah.
TP. I think trying to get some insight. We have a Insiders Part 2 coming up, of course, tomorrow from our Miami sister site, Inside the U. But three new guys and I know Miami brought back Lyle, but Sharmar Brown, have you seen much film of him? Because North
Yeah.
Dakota State, and he is just described as all no nonsense power, and that's an interesting dynamic for extending drives. But that's the level up. North Dakota State, where he was outstanding last year, I think 15 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's
No, he
front.
had big numbers. That Mark Fletcher's their lead back, and he's been a little banged up too. But I really enjoyed his film, 6'2", 225, kind of a handful, kind of a combo guy that can I mean he can do some things in the open field. I'm not sure how healthy he is. There's been more talk about Lyle in the preseason that he has had.
And then
Yeah,
CJ Daniels on his third team. Sorry, JB, with Liberty and LSU.
Yeah, like CJ Daniels is a handful, man. You better tackle well on him because he's a powerhouse.
and again,
Uh,
a 6-year guy who's played a
yeah.
ton of football.
We have a question here to wrap up segment one. Thought it would fit perfectly here instead of segment two. From Irish from A2, because we have a lot more on the matchup in segment two. Which game from the 2024 season, last year, will the Miami game resemble most?
JB.
It's hard for me not to drift back to College Station and think that there will be pretty similar elements to that Notre Dame Texas A&M game. Riley Leonard had obviously played exponentially more ball than CJ Carr or Kenny Minchie, but he hadn't played in 11 months and he had missed all of spring. And Notre Dame had a bunch of question marks on its offensive line. So I think that Notre Dame has question marks again at quarterback, but not so many question marks on its offensive line. And the only question mark on defense is, how freaking good are they going to be? Because I think they're going to be really good. And then a little bit more of a question mark on the kicking game. So, but also I think Notre Dame ultimately is going to be a little bit better in the throw game as the season unfolds. But to me, when I saw that question, I liked that question. But I immediately drifted to the A&M game because of the volume of athletes that Miami will have on the field.
Yeah, I naturally gravitate toward that one too because we've been talking about low scoring. I think if it proves to be the kind of game that we think that it'll be low scoring, I would say Texas A&M. I also think that Notre Dame could be aggressive throwing the football, and we know that Miami will likely be aggressive throwing the football with Carson Beck. And in that sense, I would say Louisville
That's
from
what my
last year.
I think this game's going to get a little looser than A&M. Maybe not quite as loose as Louisville did because that seemed like that went in so many directions with turnovers and Tyler Shough putting on a show in the first half. He was fantastic. There's so much speed on this field. I just don't think they'll both play it close to the vest. So I lean towards the Louisville game. Man, I still think the under is good here at 50 and a half, now even at 49 and a half. But man, JB, when we were watching, on all three of us, we were down there and A&M were like, I mean, 12, does 12 win? At some point you're watching
Yeah.
that game,
Yeah.
and I don't think that would be the situation in this one. That's the only difference, I
Yeah.
think.
By the way, Tim, I want to change my game by game scores.
You're allowed because we
The
have
first
time.
one,
So
I know we
the
do. So
129 things to say, I recommend if people want to read about the roster, they go to
that
irishillustrated.com.
was
But
very well done.
that pushed our the season, where all of us do the futile exercise of doing game by game scores in August, to this coming Saturday because we have time. And also, I realized we didn't want to reveal our prediction for Miami 1 week before we were supposed to reveal our predictions for Miami. So that'll be fun for everybody coming Saturday. Is there any football on next Saturday for people, or they just have to go to irishillustrated.com and read our pros the entire time? There could be some games on for you guys. With football season approaching, I've been looking to find the best deal on Notre Dame tickets, both for family and friends, but also as a memorable gift idea. That's why I want to offer the sponsor of today's segment one, SeatGeek, a huge shout out. With over 35 million downloads, SeatGeek is the number one rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Whether you're an Irish fan looking for a ticket for this weekend's matchup in Miami, the Zach Bryan concert next Saturday in South Bend, or any of college football's season-defining matchups down the road, SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. Look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. I don't think that has anything to do with jerseys, but green does mean good and red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use Irish10, that's all capital letters for Irish and the number 10, for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. 10% off any tickets with promo code Irish10. Make sure you click on the link in the description to download the app. and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you to SeatGeek. We'll be back with segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. Segment 2 of Burning Up the Boards is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame in Elkhart, Indiana. In addition to the museum and various exhibition halls, the campus is open to public for free camping and is less than an hour from Notre Dame's campus, so no reservation is required. Whether you're looking to learn about the history of recreational vehicles in our Kindle library, or simply for a cost-effective, interesting place to stay on your family road trip, the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame can provide exactly what you're looking for. Our first question is brought to us by Holtzian Prowess, and this is a long one, guys, but I really like it because I agree with the strategy. Can Notre Dame win with a run-first attack in these first 2 outings? The entire playoffs stymied our running game save for one Jeremiah Love burst. I think the short passing game, and he mentions, of course, the obvious Love, Faison, Greathouse, Raridan, Pauling, is the key to keeping the Canes off balance before we pound Love and Price. And anyone wants to add, was Miami a good tackling team last year?
Yeah, let me answer that last question first. And it was in today's story, the second look at the first rate. Miami allowed 6 of its 13 opponents last year to score at least 28 points, including 42 by Syracuse, which Syracuse scored a lot of points against everybody, but 38 by Cal, 34 by Virginia Tech, 31 by Duke. On the flip side, Notre Dame gave up 35 to USC and 34 to Ohio State. And beyond that, not more than 24 the rest of the year. So I think they did have some tackling issues last year. I don't think Notre Dame's going. I think Notre Dame's going to push the ball downfield. Now, if it rains, which it probably will, you may look at that a little bit differently. Although it's harder to defend receivers on a rainy night too. So I think they're going to push the ball down the field. I think they feel like they need to be aggressive in these situations, and they will be.
Yeah, I definitely think that Notre Dame will pick and choose some spots to take shots. But I would note that Notre Dame's offensive line is better going into this game than it was going into the A&M game a year ago. I would also note this Miami D line isn't that Texas A&M D line of a year ago, and so
No.
I do think that I would be disappointed if Notre Dame, from a Notre Dame perspective, if Notre Dame doesn't assert itself on the offensive line and set an early tone and be able to control the trenches, because I think that's a decided advantage for the Irish. Miami was a terrible tackling team last year, which is why they parted ways with Guidry, the former defensive coordinator, and brought in Corey Heatherman, among other reasons. But they were a very poor tackling team last year.
I'm not saying Notre Dame's going to abandon the run, and
Right.
absolutely,
No, no.
when you have Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, and you have that offensive line, absolutely. I'm just saying that I think you're going to see Notre Dame push the ball down the field much more than they did with Riley Leonard, particularly early in the season with Riley Leonard. And what did Mike Denbrock say about the receiving core last year, Tim? I mean, he never
ever fully comfortable with the receiving. With the pass, he said with the passing game, but
I think they feel much differently about this receiving core.
I do as well, and I love the idea when you're going to have a defense with its hair on fire that can run, no matter what their flaws are, they can move. I love setting up the run with the passing game if you're capable of doing it. It's just it used to be the other way around. It is not often anymore when you're playing against fantastic athletes. I think they can pull that off. And this is a related question from Irish Gambler. What do we know about the types of throws CJ Carr is most comfortable making? Does he have the touch for the screen game? And offensively, what are your expectations for third and passing situations? And then I'll add the other question in here.
John, jump in there.
So third and medium, third and long, John, is what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen, CJ Carr has looked good in the screen game. He's also we saw leadership even on day one of fall camp when he wasn't having a great day. He coached up a receiver who cut a route short and let it be known that, hey, you cut that route short, you need to be harder to the edge toward the sideline, and that's why the throw was beyond your reach. But he's shown good touch at all levels. He has shown some really nice throws over the middle when he's connected on those and when he has made good decisions or gone through his reads. He's turned it over too much all preseason camp. We all know that. But he has shown that he can throw to all 3 levels of the field and throw accurately to all 3 levels of the field.
And in Fields and Pauling, Pauling was compromised by injury last year, but in 2023 they combined for like 130 catches. So those are volume receivers. Those are guys that you're going to, CJ Carr is going to look for. I think every time I've seen him in a short screen game, he's looked good, which is, that's a finesse touch. You got to be good to be able to throw the ball down the field accurately and then be able to lighten up, and soften the touch to your running backs. So, I mean, I think it's all in play. I really do. We talked about interceptions in the preseason. It's CJ Carr trying to do what he thinks he's capable of doing, and that's pushing the football down the field. But I think he can virtually make the throws that you need him to make. Now let's
Yeah.
see how can he settle in and can he get complimented? Great. I didn't even mention Great House. I mean, you want to get the ball to him too. And Jordan Faison's really the fourth option among the wide receivers right now.
Terry Benedict, who I'm about to ask a question from here, mentioned something that I looked into. He's like, "Did you happen to notice that Carr in the blue goal game was throwing more to the left?" And I said, "No, I just noticed there was the blue goal game and it was one read and they were trying to get the guys out of there healthy." But in the blue goal game, if you remember, two of his first four passes were just perfect boundary fade dimes to Kevin Bauman and Jack Larson. And that's not Eli Raridon and Malachi Fields and Jaden Greathouse. That's Kevin Bauman and Jack Larson. Those were gorgeous throws. If he gets one-on-one, he will absolutely test those because those were clearly he's comfortable with that. That's why they called them.
Those two passes had to be perfect, and they
Yeah,
were.
and they were. Yeah. Terry Benedict, to add to this question very quickly, I assume he means the game. Otherwise, this is easy. Who has more interceptions, CJ Carr or the Notre Dame defense? I assume he means the Miami game. Otherwise, it's a clear answer.
I mean, I think that Notre Dame.
I'll just go even.
Yeah, I was going to say
It probably will be even, right?
I'm leaning to even there. Yeah, CJ Carr's turnovers are in practice. Carson Becks have come in games.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it's 2-2, yeah, I mean, you get out of if it's CJ Carr has one, you're super happy. And if Notre Dame has two, there's not a lot of chance. If Notre Dame has two picks, there's a very little chance they're going to lose this game, in my opinion. So maybe I do lead towards Notre Dame. I would go Notre Dame, even Carr, if I had to rank those in three.
Okay. One quick thing on the last one that I was tabulating here to the point about the Notre Dame wide receivers and us listing those top three as Fields, Pauling, and Greathouse. They combined enter this game having appeared in 100 college games already. So it's just such a different, and I don't know how to make it any more dramatic of how far that room has come than to note that Notre Dame's going to have its top three wide receivers plus Faison beyond that. But those top three guys will have appeared in a combined 100 games as they take the field this week because I think Fields and Pauling each had 36 at their previous collegiate stops, and Greathouse has appeared in 28.
Speaking of TD to interception ratio, the quarterback from Hawaii, John, did you see his touchdown interception ratio in high school?
Yeah.
Did you see that, Tia?
No.
Tell him, John.
I don't have it on the top of my head.
I think it was 125 to 4.
That's good times.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
What?
It's like Bo
Somebody-
Hunt. It's like Bo Hunt's 66 touchdowns in high school regular season, Tim. You go,
I
hey,
thought
this is
that
fair.
the ESPN production staff must have made a mistake in punching
That's
those
good
numbers in.
times.
Good Lord.
It's true now. That's all we care about.
Well, neither Beck nor Carr will be 125 to 4.
No, they will not. Question here from Irish Boy 1. Just for fun, rate from 1 to 6 how hard it will be for these teams to gain a win next weekend. These are obviously matchups. Ohio State hosts Texas. We have LSU and Clemson. And that's neutral, right, guys? LSU, Clemson. And Miami, Notre Dame.
No, LSU is at Clemson.
It is at Clemson.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
then I'm glad because I have LSU as the hardest team to earn a victory out of these matchups because it's also the biggest prize.
I would agree with that. And I think Ohio State's second. And then Miami, and then Notre Dame and Clemson and Texas. I think Texas is going to beat Ohio State. I mean, Ohio
I
State
might
is
make
just,
Miami 2 and Ohio State 3 just because they're Ohio State and they're
Okay.
Miami. Yeah,
I mean,
just
you know-
go
you
both
know.
ways on that. One team is Miami, one team's Ohio State, Tim.
Ohio State's Ohio State, but man, are they going through a transition this
Yeah,
year?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's LSU, Texas.
Texas?
So
That's
you're saying
I think Texas will have a tough time.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it is on the road. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think LSU first, Texas second, um, Miami third.
Makes Notre Dame fourth in that
Yep.
one. Yep.
And then
yeah, I guess Clemson is the one I'm
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
probably Clemson or maybe Notre Dame are the most confident. I'm the most
BK's had
confident
some
about.
issues in his opening games here too. His teams have not started well in the 3 years.
No, boy, does he need
LSU.
an opening win, and they played
Yeah.
some really difficult games, but
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
can't lose them all.
No.
I don't I don't
Although he
think
tends to do
LSU
that.
I don't think LSU has started a season with a win since maybe 2020. Like they lost their opener the year before BK arrived, and he's yet to win an opener at
Yeah. And it's,
LSU.
Jeez,
they
where's
might not
Beth?
have won it in 2020 because when you consider they lost the whole NFL from 2019,
Yeah,
we could look back and see who they played.
I,
They opened well. They
I'm
opened
willing.
with it was a COVID year, so it was not a big game.
Yeah.
It's probably not a big game. Yeah.
where's
Well,
Bethune Cookman
Oh,
when
you
you
know
need
what? I
him?
think it was a loss. I think they opened with a loss to Mississippi State, maybe in
that's what happens
2020, if I remember correctly. So,
when your entire roster goes pro. I guess it's difficult to win if you're talking about transitions.
And
That
your
was
quarterback just threw how many touchdowns to you?
60, believe it
Oh,
or not.
okay. All right.
Yes.
Just thought you might want to say that. It's been a little while.
hey,
All right,
I
we have
double checked. Great stat, TP. Sorry, it was 125 to four, and he
that's
threw for more than 9,200 yards in his high school career and completed 75% of his passes.
did you see how many you know how many yards Timmy Chang threw for in college?
Yeah, I looked that up with Sam Hartman. That's always when Sam Hartman was closing in on some top tens and top fives.
Right. He averaged 4,500 yards for 4 years.
Yeah.
You know who else had a 125 to 4 TD to interception ratio? I think Notre Dame's QB's in August, or so I've been told because we didn't see it. Actually, that's not true. Next question from ND Squid 23. This is a fill in the blank. Number one, Notre Dame's biggest advantage against Miami is blank. Miami's biggest advantage against the Irish is blank. And the single biggest advantage either team has against the other is what?
I think Notre Dame's biggest advantage against Miami is their culture. Miami's biggest advantage against Notre Dame is their home field advantage. The biggest advantage either team has is Miami's quarterback experience, Notre Dame's big game success.
For me, number one, I would say Notre Dame's biggest advantage against Miami is its offensive line. Miami's biggest advantage against Notre Dame is its experience at the quarterback position. And the single biggest advantage either team has against the other one is that I think Notre Dame knows big games and knows how to win big games.
That is definitely my single biggest advantage either team has is Notre Dame's big game experience with this roster coming back. I mean, Miami's his quarterback. You can't realistically go to this game and say that the guy that has never played before going into Miami, especially you consider Miami's biggest advantage against Notre Dame could also be the crowd. So the crowd against CJ Carr in the situation. There's only one way to shut him up. You got to play well for a little while, not one drive. So that would be it for me. I just want to weave big game experience into number one too, Priester. Like you said, culture. If I can use that as culture,
Yeah,
if that's what you mean by
it's all
culture,
part of it.
I think
It's
I'm with you on that one. It's amazing how much has changed when you're going in with trepidation to a big road environment and think to yourself, should be fine.
yeah, I know. It changed real quickly last year. We have a question from Malloy on base. A big theme is Miami's revamped secondary and a young defensive tackle group, aside from one veteran player. I see those as Irish inroads. You like that word, Tio? Irish inroads to a
See,
win.
apparently.
Do you? I do too. Do you and what are yours otherwise?
He'd also like to add, JB, if you didn't see this, as a side note, I never used the term inroads before I heard TP use that over the
Oh, I
years.
thought that was you that said
No,
that.
no, no, that was him. That was Malloy on base.
Oh,
So get a fan.
I use it too much. Sorry, but
Yeah.
it's a
Go
good
ahead,
one.
guys.
I would
What you want
say,
to answer that first? You got paired up with another one here, but
yeah, I think that it better be. Notre Dame's offensive line better be able to take advantage of a young defensive tackle group where it's going to be another rock fight. It's going to be another A&M where you're hoping Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price break one. I would like to think the veteran offensive line that's healthy, and I encourage people Monday Musings has a not well, not yet finished Monday Musings, but Monday Musings has a breakdown. Someone asked me every position, the championship game to now, where is Notre Dame better or worse? Offensive line, because Jagisa was playing for the second time in 5 months, I have a clean sweep for the offensive line in 2025. Now, obviously, if Jagisa was fully healthy and playing right, that would be different. But I think there's a big advantage for Notre Dame's offensive line. They better take care of it. So I do agree that those are the inroads right there.
Yeah,
Secondary comes down to CJ Carr. Sorry, JB.
no, you're good. I completely agree. I mean, I just got through listing that I think Notre Dame's single biggest advantage in the game is its offensive line. And so I expect that. And I also think we had the good question earlier in the pod about was Miami a good tackling team last year? And no, they were not. And I'm sure they'll be better. But Notre Dame has a bunch of dudes that are not real fun to tackle either. I mean, it's hard to tackle Jeremiah Love, and he doesn't care to jump over you, but he'll lower the shoulder. And Jadarian Price, and we know Aeneas Williams. Nolan James has turned heads all camp long. Malachi Fields is a huge specimen. Will Pauling is just pretty.
Yes, he is. He is
Yeah,
a big dude,
big
man.
big catch radius, big dude, like just a specimen. So, yeah, I think those are inroads. Good use of the word inroads, and I think those are areas that, again, if Notre Dame is not able to exploit those areas, I'll be disappointed.
Well, Malachi Fields and CJ Daniels, those are two powerhouse
Yeah, yeah.
wideouts in this game. Um, I guess I'm not as convinced. First game, cohesion, continuity. I'm not as convinced that Notre Dame's offensive line is just going to, you know, blow the off the ball the interior defensive line for Miami. I think that they're better. I think that they ultimately will over 4 quarters. I don't know if I picture it as distinctly as you guys do. Our next question is from new NYC Leprechaun. Is there a specific area of focus for Notre Dame's offensive line, for example, running right behind Gerby Lambert and Emil Wagner, because Miami's D line is strongest opposite?
I mean, I love the run game combo of Knapp and Schroth, so I don't want to jump over to the first time Lambert and Wagner. I mean, obviously we're all intrigued by Gerby Lambert playing guard and what he can be if he's a road grader here by the end of the year, but I'd go with that left side combo. Strength versus strength is fine in this one. If you're worried about Knapp, it wouldn't be as much in this situation, right?
Yeah,
The
and
run game with Schroth.
we've seen them what we did see in preseason camp. We saw them working combo blocks every day. We saw them
Yes. Yep.
working pulling the guards too. So imagine going left, but also having Gerby Lambert pulling out right and coming in front of you behind those guys on the left side as well. So I don't think Notre Dame feels like it's going to be handcuffed running to either side of the line of scrimmage. And we saw in the sessions that we witnessed, we saw them working both directions and doing different things and doing different things well in both directions, both with the run game and then leaking out some screens from both sides of the backfield.
When I talk about Notre Dame's offensive line, I just like first game chemistry, but when I look at Schrouth, Craig, and Lambert, I mean, those three as an interior offensive line have a chance to be
Yeah.
that. I mean, have a chance to be the best three interior linemen anywhere. So I just don't know the chemistry is that great first time through. And I maybe I've looked at Miami too much, and maybe I'm giving some of those guys a little bit too much respect, because I know that coming out of Miami camp, there's been concern about that. But I think that there's some guys there from Miami that are players as well. We have also a question here from Simple Soothsayer.
That's a tough one. I'm glad you
That
took that one first.
that's why I read it slowly.
Yes.
You will be shocked if this Irish position group plays poorly in the opener.
Broken record here, O line.
I'm going linebacker.
I'm going cornerback.
I wrote down CB and then I thought to myself, well,
Well,
it happened twice in the last 5 games with one side of the field.
no, I
So I
agree,
decided to
but
go.
that's a young receiving core.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I wrote about 590 career catches and 61 touchdowns from the top four receivers in the tight end. I don't, Malachi Tony, I'm sure he's having a great camp, but he's a true freshman. I just don't have the confidence in that receiving core. Again, first game against Notre Dame's corners.
I'd be pretty disappointed if the linebackers play poorly now. I mean, that was the how did they get through A&M and they came through with flying colors and then they didn't against Northern Illinois. It was, I mean, the linebackers were responsible for a few of those things that happened in that crazy Northern Illinois game with KV with Kingston and I caught myself see that with Viliamu and Bowen in the first 16 minutes, but I don't think you'll see that anymore, man. Those guys, I think it's a coming out party for the linebackers.
Yeah, I don't disagree. The second part of that question was, will you be shocked if this game unfolds similarly to this one from the recent
That's a
past?
hard question.
I
Like,
don't, man.
what would
I like
shock?
I threw up my hands on that one.
I like that question.
I
It's
know
it's a beaut,
it
but
really is. Yeah.
I've got I've got two answers. I would be shocked if it unfolds like last year's USC game, which was
Yeah.
an absolute track meet, and Notre Dame obviously won it, pulling away with some key pick sixes late. But I would be stunned if this was a blow for blow 38-31 tilt or 35-31 tilt late in the game, and both offensives have marched up and down the field. I would also be stunned if it was like the Florida State game from a couple of years ago where Notre Dame just absolutely ran the Seminoles out of the stadium. So either one of those two would be what would most surprise me.
I would be pretty surprised if it's a I can't believe they pulled that game out Penn State game. Where like you left the whole game, you're just like, gosh, they cannot get their footing. They look dead. I mean, Penn State was beating them to the punch on the offensive line. You're surviving up front. So that would surprise me because I think like Notre Dame will. I feel like that was one of the all-time tough it out games by Notre Dame.
it
They
really
did run for
was.
200 yards against Notre Dame, and Notre Dame won the game in a situation where Tyler Warren played well. They ran for 200 yards, and somehow Notre Dame pulled that thing
I
out.
mean, think about I mean collectively how we felt before Angeli had to replace Riley Leonard at the end of the first half. It's
Yeah.
like they look sluggish. They look like okay, this playoff run, game 15 is just too many. Now Penn State, am I right about this? If Penn State would have won, they would have played their 17th game in the
Yeah, they would have broken. They would
right.
have been really hard to beat
Yeah,
record. Yeah, Ohio State didn't play on the conference championship game, which shows you how important those things are these days.
we have a question from Mustard Pants. Notre Dame loses Sunday night in a game that did not include a turnover for either team. Why did they lose?
I got my answer for that one.
Go for it.
Red zone inefficiencies.
Oh,
Field goals, missed field goal, the worst thing. Turnover on downs at the 5. Red zone inefficiencies would be the way Notre Dame loses that game.
My answer was going to be missed opportunities, be it missed field goals or conversions that don't work, inside the red zone or even just in
Yeah.
plus territory. If that happens, it will be because Notre Dame had opportunities in plus territory and did not turn those opportunities into enough points.
which we heard a little bit about during preseason practice, about that being an issue in the red zone. So they're going to have to be better than that. I said, and I believe that's the best answer, but I wrote down the no, Navy, Miami's offensive line,
Wish it was Navy.
which is a good, yeah, which is a good one. Miami's offensive line is good, unless Brockermeyer is a bit of a liability in the run game. We'll find out. I mean, he played some good football at TCU too. But I had Miami's offensive line getting the best of Notre Dame's defensive tackles.
I like this question. From Too Much Posse. It's a Public Enemy reference. I even like it more, but I'm not sure it is because he says, I'm 19 years old and I loved listening to McElroy and McDonough in the playoffs. Might be because they won, of course. And usually my dad mutes the TV so he gets sad, but not last January. Who was your favorite college football announcer or tandem growing up? And did you irrationally hate any like I do all the other ones?
When when I when I heard when I heard Keith Jackson's voice, you knew it was a big game, and most of the time it was Notre Dame and Notre Dame at USC or something along those lines. For me, it was Keith Jackson, but I'm a really old guy.
Whoa, Nelly.
Yeah.
Um, no, I mean Keith Jackson's iconic. But for me, some of the early ESPN days was
Oh, great one.
Ron Franklin and Mike Gottfried. I really like those two guys together. Really like those two guys together. And announcers that I didn't care for. Some of them might still be calling games, and I might run into them, so I will refrain from answering. But that's a hell of a good question.
I liked Franklin. I remember Franklin kind of at the end there when he got in trouble. Was it Holly Rowe and someone else? He made sexist comments on air. Yeah, but I like Franklin's voice. I loved until I didn't. I loved Brent Musburger's voice. I thought Brent was the greatest. I know
No, he was
everybody
great.
feels like he didn't like Notre Dame, but I don't care about those things because I don't believe those things. I love listening to him. He did want Miami to win in '88. I will give Notre Dame fans that. But I think if you listen back at that one, it's a little rough. But I love Brent, especially neutral games where you don't care who wins, just a big game. Brent was fantastic.
I love that McElroy and McDonough are going to be on the call this
Oh,
week.
Oh, they're
that is
great. I think
that's
they're
a
great.
good group.
And
That's a
I
really
always
good group.
I always liked Lundqvist.
Yeah,
Hearing his voice come across at 3:30 was very fun for me as
I
well.
don't hate announcers like a lot of people do, but I did,
As
and
a
I do.
kid, did you as a kid?
No,
No.
I mean I did. I just didn't. We lived in a little different world. We live in a world now where everybody hates everybody. It wasn't quite like that 40 years ago. But and the guy I'm going to mention, I respect his great enthusiasm for the job he does. He clearly loves the job that he
Oh
does.
yeah.
But I recently rewatched the Texas Arizona State game, and Joe Tessitore's level of drama with everything that happens is just really over the top sometimes.
I can't think of when I was a kid. I didn't like I now I appreciate him, of course. The late Al McGuire always made me mad because it didn't seem like he was rooting for Notre Dame when I was younger, which was, of course, probably not true.
He
He
probably
he
wasn't.
probably was. That's true. He probably was rooting for Notre Dame, but I think he was Digger's friend. But no, I get it. I just like the question because I like the fact that too much Posse's dad mutes games other than when McDonough and McElroy. On. But McDonough is great in college basketball. He is fantastic in college basketball too.
McDonough
Yeah.
is just great all around. He's got the right tone. Like nobody ever accuses it. I rarely hear somebody say he wanted somebody to win,
Yeah.
whereas Herb Street's always accused of that, and I don't think that's accurate. But I get it.
If
He's called a lot of games Notre Dame has lost.
if JB, I don't know if JB has heard this, but if Pete were here, we'd be talking about my single favorite exchange in the history of announcing in college basketball because we all love Raftery, Billis, and McDonough together, right? Those three have fun, which is what you're supposed to be doing, having fun and knowing what you're talking about. But when Raftery said Torian Jones, if you remember Torian Jones, everybody is a great basketball player. There's this pregnant pause. Billis, great.
Great.
It's like, yeah, he does everything well. He passes, he sets screens, he cuts back door, he's tough. So he's good. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like he's so Billis just jumps in. So if words have no meaning, then he's great. It's an unbelievable exchange.
Yeah.
Billis can be
He
a
could
little
be.
obnoxious.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, but that's
Yeah.
still a good one. That's a beauty right there.
Yeah. And I know about being obnoxious. We're going to wrap up with a question from AMP 36. Which is the better indicator that Notre Dame football is poised for sustained success under Marcus Freeman? A, beating the brakes off good teams, so not just beating teams like Georgia and Penn State, but beating them soundly. Or B, avoiding the letdown game against lesser competition, such as Marshall and Northern Illinois.
I'm going with A, because although I'm not going to stoop to the level of my colleague at Football Scoop, Zach Barnett, who, when we did our projections for best teams to overachieve or underachieve, he tried to make a compelling argument that Texas would lose at either Kentucky or Mississippi State. And I wanted him kicked off the podcast at that moment. It was such a bad take. But he did drive home the point that, like, JB, it's still 18 to 22-year-old kids. They're not always going to show up geeked out of their minds for every single game. So letdowns happen to everybody. But when Notre Dame wins the games it won a year ago and does so almost exclusively not inside Notre Dame Stadium, that to me is the sign of a program that has arrived to a higher rung on the ladder. And this is another opportunity this weekend to continue to be at the top of that ladder.
Not even close for me. I totally agree with you that no, no coach and no, not no. In a given season, you can be. It's rare, but no coach, no team consistently can be up for everyone. I mean, I have something on Today on Monday Musings showing how somebody asked me. This is a great question. I should have put on the podcast actually. Someone asked me if what this incredible run by Notre Dame, USC playoffs, and now Miami and A&M. Go back and look at the 88, 89,
Oh,
90 run. It's insane. But throw in there losing to 25-point underdog Stanford, 16-point underdog Stanford, 17-point underdog BYU later on. There's everyone over the course of a couple years will find one of those losses. Beating the brakes off of Miami A&M, or beating the brakes off of one of those two, beating the other one, beating the brakes off of USC, hosting a playoff game and winning convincingly, that is the step that cements things. They are going to have a letdown. You're just not supposed to lose to Northern Illinois. It's okay to have a letdown.
yeah. I mean, I think Notre Dame fans are very familiar with Brian Kelly winning all the games that he should win, but what gets you over the hump
Yeah.
is those big games. And look, Marshall, Stanford, the first year of Marcus Freeman and Northern Illinois. I'm not saying that won't ever happen again, but I don't think that those are going to happen with the frequency that they did in the first couple of years. I'd like to think that that's behind them. Look, you're not going to Georgia and Penn State aren't going to get the brakes beaten off of them very often. That's not
Yeah.
that's not easy to do. But what separated Lou Holtz from everybody else, as you mentioned, Tim, was consistently in that 88, 89, the 88, 89 seasons where they're playing top 10 teams right and left and they're winning.
You win them and you beat the brakes off a couple. That's kind of how that works. There's sometimes you come out and it's just you are so much better that day than the other team is. But to put it in perspective, since it's at my disposal as this is my own computer, um, in 1988 or 1989 and 90, in the very end of 88. So this does not even include the famous Miami game of 1988, okay? Notre Dame played 16 top 20 teams in a 27 game span. 11 of them in the top 10, and they only lost three.
Unbelievable.
And one was to Miami, who was just beat the brakes off them, and Miami was better than Notre Dame in that classic. Not classic for Notre Dame, but for Miami fans. They enjoyed that one. And Tim Priest, there'll be some questions on that 89 game in our next podcast. I've saved some stuff for Thursday for Miami history. But until then, that is it for this edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. We will be back Thursday. Official preview of the Notre Dame season opener against Miami. Before then, we'll have instant analysis following Marcus Freeman's press conference tomorrow, Tuesday. So we'll be there about 1 o'clock instant. Interviews with players and coordinators Wednesday night. And of course, constant content via the written word on irishillustrated.com. For Tim Priester, John Bryce, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for watching and listening to Irish Illustrated Insider.